Hello. no one's no one's chanting. No one's chanting for me. How's everybody doing? All right, let me turn this up a little bit. Here we go. Or how's Todd doing? And maybe one others. All right. I think we're about ready to go. I don't have music. I don't have anything. Hey, Isaac. I got Todd and Isaac, two people who aren't going to show any animation. That's all right. Hey, Samir, how are you? How is Sean doing? I'm doing fine. You can give me a rig. All right. Sounds wonderful. I can move it around. I will check the folder, see if anybody has anything in there. I don't think anybody does. Oh, Samir does. All right. That's what I'm talking about. All right, let's get this going. Alrighty. You have some very unfinished. That's fine. I'll take unfinished. I'll take in progress. All right, pretty rough stuff. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Let me, I'm gonna fix this so it can be a little closer. Zoom it in a little bit. There we go. Alrighty. So let's see what this is. Hope everybody's having a good Friday morning. Samir, I like how Samir, it's like, oh, this is really rough. Samir looks pretty nice. So what is the overall, what are you going for? Is this just a jump? I think this is your animation 2 jump assignment. Is what I'm guessing. So let me. All right. Overall, like initial impressions, very good, right? Very fluid, fun arcs. I mean, like the break that you have going on there. It's very cool. Lots of energy. Hey, Samir, nobody has to know what your workflow is like, right? They only see the finished product. I got 2 workflow examples. one guy that I worked with, amazing animator, Tim Pixton, I had to clean up or fix one of his shots at the end of a movie, and he worked on twos, so he set a key on absolutely every single thing every 2 frames, so every other frame. So it was like it was rigid, right? It was tough to clean up because there's so many keys, so you'd almost have to just pick a section and delete everything in there and then try to rework it. Amazing animator, right? And again, very structured and controlled. That was his way of working. Nothing wrong with that. He's an amazing animator. He's a better animator than me. And then there was another guy, Zach Parrish. I didn't clean up one of his shots. The guy next to me at the studio was cleaning up one of his shots. Zach Parrish is, again, way better animator than I could ever be. He's incredible. But when the guy opened up his shot, it was like, he said it was like somebody took a bowl of spaghetti and just dumped it into the graph editor. He's like, he couldn't make sense of anything because it was so messy. And what he kind of figured out was he was really just animating on the screen and moving everything on the screen to where it needed to be, and he didn't care about what was going on in the graph editor. So all that to say, nobody really cares what the workflow is as long as the work is good. And you don't have to tell anybody. All right, so let's look at your actual stuff. So one thing that I notice right at the beginning that I would start to go through on your polish phase, this is personal preference, I would say. So as you start to push those arms, right here, you have the break, and I think the break is great, right? I would just, I would round it out. I would take those bend bow controls in a frame like here. So you're going to have one right there, and you'll have one right in there. And I would just start to round this out so it makes probably a slightly more pleasing shape. And again, you're only seeing it for 2 frames. You really have, because this is a simple curve right there in those arms. This is where you see the hard break. Another hard break there, and then you're back to your regular arm already in there. Certainly you could clean up, the interpenetration through the head. You've got those breaks that are happening right there. So I would just kind of soften the curve or put a curve in there. What's really helping you right now through that is you're not seeing it for very long, but also your hands have a whole lot of overlap on there, so they're really helping you transition through there. The one thing that I would also look at is your path of action. So we're kind of doing this, right? So if we follow that up there, when you get to the top of the arc, this is the only thing that, when you watch it, once you start your path of action, think about this. If I jump straight up, once I get to the apex of my jump, I can't then move forward, right? Or move in another direction. Chances are, if you go straight up, you're coming straight down. So likewise in this, there's just a slight angle here, and then you get to the top, and then it's like he leaps over something. So then this really rounds out. Now it could be like a little bit of an optical illusion because we're looking at, he's kind of jumping in a 3/4 way. So I would look at that from the side and just make sure that that arc is making sense. So it's not doing something like that. If that makes sense. You weren't aware. Yeah, so if you select the main control at the bottom, you can turn on the visibility for bendy, for the bend bows. I don't remember what they're called. I think they're called bend bows, maybe. But you can turn those on. So they're on the arms and legs, and that might be it. So then the other thing, as you come down, You want to track this stuff through space. I think your hips are fine. Yeah, there's a nice arc traveling through there. But the head does have like a snap. So I would want to track that. Yeah. Overall, this is awesome. I would just track that arc, because it does, as it comes down, it does that. And it's not that it's wrong. It's not that you need to keep it all the way through there. It's just a little bit of a, let's watch. You know, you might be all right. I would watch those arms stick at the end, so they throw up and you hit in this position. The body has some good like residual movement. The arms might just get a little bit stiff on you in there. I mean, they're still moving because they're attached, but they kind of get stuck in that position. They look a little bit rigid, and then they relax. So you just might want to, boom, they hit it, and then they have a little bit of a relax, so they're not just like perfectly straight. I would try that. And then at the very, very end, you have overlap within the arms. Your body completely freezes, and then your arms finish that move, and then they feel like they freeze for a couple of frames at the end. So you need you need that body to not freeze. You know, it pretty much by the time we get to boom, right here. Oh, you got frame numbers on, nice. All right, so you by the time you hit frame 77, it sticks. And then we finish off where you've got, you know, 12-ish more frames where that body doesn't move at all. Okay. Yeah. So you just have polish left. The building blocks of all of it are wonderful. Watch your overall arc through space, but everything else is just polish. Super nice. Like this is really, really good. Great job. What do I use to draw? I'm just in Photoshop. The only thing that I would like in this, and I don't think you can do it, is an onion skin, so that I could see. Like what I would really like is on this, where I'm drawing these like little tracking things for the hips. If I had an onion skin, then I could watch it through the whole thing. I don't know. There might be a better program, but this one's easy and I've got it. So yeah, just doing it in Photoshop. You might be able to get a little bit, like everything right now is really, really natural and fluid. The stand up might be just a little bit awkward because the character is down and then it kind of rotates up like this. So it's like as they stand, the body is rotating to the left and then it kind of comes up. So maybe getting a little bit more fluidity in there, and it's just a little bit, maybe just a little bit mechanical. Again, it's getting nitpicky for what this is, but overall, really nice. All right. See if there's anything else in that folder. There we go. Bryce. All right, Bryce. Hey, thanks for bringing something, Samir. Appreciate it. All right, Bryce. So I know you said this is rough and you're kind of in the middle of it. No problem there. So I'll go through one at a time. Let's start with the easy one. We'll start with the bowling ball. That's all right. Don't worry about it. So you can see on this path right through here that it's going, and then on these last few bounces, you see how it stops and bounces in the same place. Because this is heavy, it's going to take a lot of force for it to stop, right? Much more force than it would take for the beach ball because it's light. So that ball is going to keep traveling to the left. And even after it stops bouncing, it'll probably roll, especially because the path that you had as it came in it's moving a decent distance from right to left. So my guess is, like, if I watch this, like my impression, boom, boom, you're going to end up somewhere right in there when this thing fully stops. Not necessarily when it finishes the bounces. When it finishes the bounces, it might be somewhere in here, but then it'll have a little bit of a roll to it. So if you need it to finish there, then what you would want to do is have it start more to the left, probably, so that it's much more of a straight kind of drop versus here. Let me so we're here. All right, so you kind of started there, so maybe you start here and that first bounce, something like that, if you want it to stop in that position. That's what I would probably do. Okay? So let's look at, let's see which one. All right, we're going to look at the tennis ball. So you definitely have the same issue at the end of that where it's like bouncing and then it stops its translation and it just stays in the same spot. So there's a number of things that you could do. You could just put a wall in there and it like bounces, boom, bounces back, since it needs to stay on frame or on within the frame. So then the other thing we want to look at is the path of this. So it's really coming, it's not straight down, but it's pretty close. So you're starting about there, and we're going here. So you should be able to say, like, the next bounce, if this was the top of it, top of that arc, we're traveling somewhere kind of like that. So again, what I would say is and you probably do, you probably want this to be here, and then you would say, where was my starting point? If it was right there, let's find kind of roughly where the middle of those are. Okay? And then that'll make that feel natural. So if you like the starting spot and you want to keep that spot, let's work with that spot. where it's going to touch the ground, and that'll hopefully make that feel natural. Because what you don't want is this, right? It drops, and then you're like, oh crap, I got to be over here, and so you do that. You change your trajectory. So what's happening right now is this beach ball, I believe, is coming in from that direction. No, it's coming straight down. Okay, so it's coming straight down. This is hitting almost flat, right? Right on the side. It's a little bit under, obviously. So what you got to figure out is, based on where I'm hitting this, and this is coming straight down. The beach ball is coming straight down. So there's not a lot of force pushing it back to the left. What's going to make the most sense for the trajectory of this? And right now, when I watch it, based on what you have going in, it's coming out at too severe of an angle. For the speed at which it's traveling, and based on the beach ball coming straight down, I think it's going to be really close to mimicking the same path that it came up in. It's going to be real close to that. It's not going to be exactly the same. If it hit right on the side of this ball, it would be exactly the same. It would basically be like it's running into a wall. It bounces up, boink, hits it perfectly flat, and then we're going to come straight back down. It also depends on if you're hitting it in the... are you hitting it at the top of the arc, or are you still traveling up? Because if you are, let's say this, if there's a wall here, I know I'm giving you a lot of information, but if you're still traveling with a decent amount of speed, but we're still on our way up, and we hit this, you can bounce off of it and do that, right? It could still be traveling up, but we go in the opposite direction. So you'd want to figure that out. Are you at the top of your arc or not? Now that's a flat wall. Obviously when we start to, let me go forward one. When we start to consider, we're kind of hitting it from that angle. Boom. Are we at the top of our arc? If we're not, then it might still go up and then we come off. If we are, it's not perfectly flat. I just get the feeling it's going to come back down somewhere in here, if that kind of makes sense. For me right now, it's a really straight line. So we want to arc that up and then probably push it back to the right so that it feels a little bit better. Okay? And then you're good until the very end, where it just kind of stops and we bounce in place. Yeah, and it's going to be recorded too, Bryce, so you can always go back if you miss something. So, all right, so let's look at the beach ball. You know, your beach ball actually isn't bad. You got to round out those arcs. You got to finish it off at the end, right? Because it kind of stops a little bit, probably abruptly. It probably needs a few more little, really tiny bounces in there. Got to get the rotation going as well. Yeah, definitely. You want to round out those arcs a little bit more, especially in this one. As you come down right through here, it starts to feel like a straight or like a diagonal line through there. So just make sure you're rounding that out. Sorry if I hit my mic there. Round those out. Give me some more bounces at the end. Add the rotation. I think you're in fine shape for where you're at, you know, kind of like right in the middle of it. You don't have any real issues right now. So yeah, you're doing it. Let me check the folder. I don't know if anybody else is even on the stream right now, but all right, that's it so far. Cool. Thanks for showing something, Bryce. Appreciate it. All right, now I gotta find something to do. I gotta turn this music down. A little loud there. If anybody has any regular questions, if either of you have any questions you're curious about, ask away. Otherwise, I'm gonna find some work to do. See if I can get this thing to work. Hold on. Here we go. Just trying to get this to work right before the stream, but I didn't have enough time, so let's see if we can do it right now. Oh, this is going to make the stream 10 times better. If I can get it. Check that out. Teacher, I have a question. You still want to know when we're getting information about the concentration essays and due dates? This is an animation stream, not like concentration applications. However, I do, I do have that information written down. I can pull that out. Or Todd's on the stream too. He can actually tell you as well, probably. I don't know. Hold on. It's coming soon. Hold on. Where do I have that written down? So in week 5, Bryce, you have an info session. When is week 5? That's next week, right? Yes. So next week you have an info session. Applications, I believe, go out on the 20th, September 20th. So let's see. So they go out on Monday, and then they'll have info sessions. So next week, that's when everything should be going out. Todd, what do you think of my template that I played around with? I don't have anything to put on the right side right now under animation critique, and I'll need to fill the whole screen. All right, Todd's question: when the bouncing ball has a top and bottom control for the squash and stretch, do you animate both? King only one seems to mess with the fall rate of the ball. Yep. So you just have to decide, Todd, on which one you want to mess with. So, for instance, when you're at the top, where's my pen? So when you're at the top of your arc, you wouldn't want to animate the top one, like as you start to add stretch, because it's going to start to grow it in the wrong direction. So in that case, you would want to use the bottom, right? So we're going to stretch in that direction to not mess with that top. And so as we drop, I would use this one. And you only want to use one at a time, really. Or at least that's the way I do it. All the way into the ground. Then you're going to squash. And when you squash, once you touch the ground, you really want to set that bottom one back to its neutral state. And then you can squish the top one down. And then as you come up off the ground, you'll leave the bottom one there, and then you're just using the top one on the way back up, if that makes sense. So on the way down, you use the bottom. On the way back up, you use the top. And I don't remember, Todd, if there's a video that kind of walks you through that. There might be. I found in class using roughly a 19 frame cycle worked the best. I started with like 14, looked too fast, so I bumped it out to like 19, I think. Yeah, so the old video has that like weird arrow, right? Like there's like four arrows that are up, down, left, right. And that one was just you were dialing it on and off. So I think this ball works better. But yeah, there's a little bit of the idea is the same, right? When you're looking at that video, that walkthrough video, the idea is the same. The control is different. So threw a little curveball to the students, but in fact, what I always tell them is, you're always going to work on if you become an animator, every rig is going to be different. Even if it's just a regular biped human character, every rig is different. Every rig was different when I worked at the same studio. Like working at Rhythm and Hues, every single show felt like it was a brand new type of rig because you had different riggers who would be assigned to shows, and everybody did it a little bit differently. So I'll give it all back to you, Todd. All $0. So it's good to kind of get used to that. I'm not saying that that's why we necessarily have done that, but there's nothing wrong with being flexible with rigs and what you've got to work with. So, all right, let's see if anybody tossed anything in there. I don't think anybody did, but nothing. Todd, do we get to look at your squash and stretch loop? All right. Whoops. Gotta look into my folder there. Folder of crap. So, Bryce, if you just want to do animation, like the animation that we're doing in character animation or in computer animation 1, is that what you're talking about? It's always a little bit confusing when you're looking at when we're talking about animation, because animation is a term that encompasses everything and then also one discipline in there. So if you're talking about just that, like the actual kind of, I'll call it character animation, even though we're not animating characters necessarily right now. Yeah, your path is computer animation 1, computer animation 2, and computer animation 3. Those are the main classes. Beyond that, there are some special topics classes that pop up now and again. I don't teach those. That would be Brian Caldwell. He normally is teaching the special topics classes, and those include, right now there's kind of two. I think he's teaching a creatures class. That would be a good one to jump in and just, you get to practice. And then there will be an animation for games at some point popping up. It's not going to be next semester, but maybe in 1 year, next fall or something like that. So obviously animation 1 is offered all the time. Animation 2, there's always a section, I believe, every semester. Animation 3 is the only one that's offered only one time a year, and that takes place in the spring. So you do want to time that out correctly to make sure you're ready to go for that one. So you have the special topics classes, and then you have the animation studio class where you can also, work on that group project, work on a short film. Beyond that, those are really the only computer CG animation classes that we've got. Yeah, so keep an eye out for that. Again, it's definitely not happening next semester, but it could possibly happen next fall. Possibly. We'll see. Samir, jumping back in, got another question. Rough blocking pass shot. Oh, yeah. Toss it in that folder when you get a chance. I'm only seeing your jump in there right now. All right, there we go. Okay. So it's definitely crazy. So one thing that I would ask is what's going on at the beginning? Like what's he doing, and then what is he so mad about? Because it's not clear right now. So this pose right here is a little bit of a like if I were just looking at that pose, I would say it's kind of a little bit of an odd pose, just because you're kind of looking at the underside of him, and he's looking down at the ground, and then like the position of his legs make that a little bit of an awkward feel. I would also say he appears. Part of that is because I know the rig. He would probably fall over forward just because he's got a really big head, like hips area. So certainly this move right now, here to here to there, is pretty crazy. So, again, not necessarily wrong, but when you watch it, it's like when I watch it, it's really poppy. There's stuff moving around. Obviously, it's blocking, but if you really want to do that, what you probably need to do, like if you want to do this move, you know, another thing that might be hurting you is like you've got the bent knee, and then we definitely see it reverse, and we have a really bent knee, and then we have a straight knee, straight bend. Like the bend to straight is really snapping hard, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So if there's any way to simplify that, but what I would definitely try to do in your blocking pass, probably to make it cleaner, is let's get a breakdown in here, because right now it's a straight move, right? It's straight down, and we don't get that arc. You probably, Or I would try to see what happens when you add in another. That might also help with the really bent leg to straight. So if you've got something like that, so it's starting to ease out of that really hard bend, and then we can describe the arc a little bit better. Might want to push the leg out even just a little bit. Even if you're cheating it and stretching the leg out, it's not going to matter. And then from here to here, right? So we want to work that arc so that it looks correct. So where does that foot need to be? Even here, though, it could be straight. That leg could be straight, so I don't know. It could push it down there. So you'd want to work on that in there. If you can do that, I think that will help that read a little bit better, and it'll be a little bit smoother just because it's so poppy right now. Again, you might want to break down in here, just because the foot's here and then the foot's here. So where do you want that arc to go? A lot of times in a blocking pass, what you don't want questions. So you want to answer certain things, and you don't want when somebody looks at it to have to figure something out. So how a character gets from A to B, is this something you want to, if he's standing here and then magically he's over here, right? Well, then you've got information that you got to fill in. Likewise, if I've got a foot that's here and then a foot that's here, you might say, well, how's it going to get there? So you want to put that in. It could technically get over it like that. It could come across straight like this, or it could arc under like that. So give me one breakdown and it's going to help you, just because it's traveling for so far. I know this is really stylized, like it's pretty cartoony. You just want to watch that, just that angle of the foot leg relationship realistically. And I know this isn't necessarily realistic animation, but that angle, it's kind of can't really get into that position. The foot, the heel of the foot is going to come up in that instance. You'd also want to look at, like, how are you going to deal with the momentum, because this character is moving quickly, pushes into here, but then it stops, right? Then we slam forward and then we move up. So it's just about getting, in this case, the arc that pushes up, does it overshoot and then come down? Versus push forward and then up and then down. So working just that slight little arc in there. So for me, it's that beginning pose. Why is he so mad? What is it that pose is communicating? And then it's about breakdowns of how you're getting from place to place or describing the arc. Those are the biggest things for me right now. Obviously, I'm not really looking at like story, because I'm not sure what it is. You'd probably need to put some more things in there. I can tell that he's mad. He's really mad. But that's kind of That's kind of it. And one other thing that I will say, since you're in Professor Caldwell's class, his notes, just remember, his notes always trump mine, right? Because he's your teacher right now. So you don't want to say, well, I took this to Sean and he gave me this note. And if it contradicts his note always wins, right? That kind of goes for any of these things. So just make sure you remember that, okay? Otherwise, it's pretty fun. Definitely snappy and pushed, which is good. So those are good things, okay? So hopefully that helps. Just checking the folder, seeing if there's anything else. Doesn't look like it. All right. Any other questions? This is going to be the Samir and Bryce critique hour. So good for you. Your stuff is going to look great. All right, I'll hang around a couple more minutes and then we're going to go unless there's other questions. Yeah, it's definitely tough to... You have limitations, I'll say, with this character, obviously. But that's good. Limitations are good, because it forces you to think about... It's kind of like with that first character that you did with your jump. You can I've seen animations with that character that are really nice and have a lot of emotion in it. But it doesn't have a face, so it forces you to really work with the poses and really animate it thoughtfully and consider everything. Whereas if I gave you a face, a lot of times you might just go to the face and start playing with that and doing that. So limitations are good because it forces you to really think about what you're doing versus just go with like the easy thing necessarily. How do I feel about apples? Apples are fine. Nothing wrong with a good apple. I've got one. I've got two. I've got two down here. Oh, this one's an old one. How long has this been in my refrigerator? That's a gross one. I'm gonna throw that one away. I'm not even gonna show it. It's all wrinkly. I have a fresh one in there somewhere. A nice Honeycrisp apple. Not too bad. Gala, not too bad. Never a Red Delicious. Red Delicious are gross. It's soft and grainy sometimes. All right. I think that's enough. Thanks for stopping by. Hold on. Read the last one. Alternate poses for the ones that aren't reading well. So, I think you're really fine. A lot of this will come down to how you animate through it. So, making sure you have the correct pauses to get things to read. Because it's so crazy, right? Like, he's really stomping. Fuji's are good, too. Fuji's are good. He's really stomping. So I think you're okay. So the two biggest ones, obviously, are this one. For the most part, he's basically just showing you his butt. So I would probably come out of that. It's just... It depends on what you're trying to do. Like, is this something you want to show? Like, is it just an exercise, or is it something you're like, I want to show this? Because if it's just an exercise, then just you can just have him stand in there and he's going to turn around and do his thing. If you're really trying to show it and you want it to be communicate a certain thing, then you really almost have to come up with a reason for why he's getting so mad. And it could be as simple as he's standing there and, I don't know, something flies in and hits him in the head, and then he freaks out, right? You don't have to overthink it necessarily. That might be a silly idea, but he's going to come over here and look. This one's not bad. I try to get away from like this straight line where everything is lining up. Even if it's as simple as like rotating the foot out, that gives you a little something. If he's still, I know he was leaning far forward to get those kind of angles. That's nice. A lot of times this doesn't necessarily fit with what you're necessarily going for, but I like to push those kind of shapes a lot of times with this character just because it gives you a nice, I don't know, I think it's appealing. Weird, it says I'm getting like an error. Hopefully the stream still looks all right. So I would look at your very first and your very last, and that's about it. Where you could just plus them just a little bit. There's nothing really wrong necessarily with your last one. It's just, tweaking those legs just a little bit to make a slightly more appealing pose. Okay? All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your Friday and weekend. It was fun. Good stuff. Thanks for sharing. So long.